I was 3 bites into my salad when Michael Barrett's voice cut through the break room like a fire alarm. Conference room. No. All hands. He didn't wait for a response. Just turned and walked, expecting us to follow like trained dogs. I looked down at my lunch. The lettuce was already wilting. My stomach growled in protest, but I wrapped it back up and headed toward the glass-walled room where Michael was already setting up the projector. 23 people filed in behind me. Some grabbed chairs. Others leaned against the walls. I took a seat near the middle, right where I always sat during these surprise meetings that Michael loved to spring on us. The screen flickered to life. My heart stopped. There, blown up in massive font across the white wall, was my name. Rowan Pierce, Supplier Relationship Audit. I felt every pair of eyes in the room turn toward me. My fork was still in my hand. I set it down slowly, trying to keep my face neutral. Michael clicked to the next slide. This, he said, gesturing broadly at the screen, is what happens when someone goes rogue. The slide showed a spreadsheet. My spreadsheet. The one I'd been building for 14 months. Color-coded tabs, notes in the margins, timestamps on every entry. I'd logged supplier complaints. Personal details about warehouse managers. Birthdays of logistics coordinators. Random preferences I'd picked up during calls. One guy hated automated emails. Another always wanted confirmations by text. Someone else preferred morning deliveries because his kid had afternoon soccer practice. Stuff that mattered. Stuff that kept people coming back. If you're new here and enjoying these powerful stories, make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. Let me know in the comments what part of today's story touched you most. Michael scrolled through it, slow and deliberate, like he was presenting evidence at a trial. Note here, he said, zooming in on one cell. Supplier's mother hospitalized. Follow up gently on contract renewal. A few people in the room shifted uncomfortably. And this one, Michael continued, clicking again. Manager going through divorce. Avoid discussing personal life unless he brings it up first. Someone coughed. Another person looked down at their phone. Michael turned to face the room, arms crossed. This is not our job. We are procurement specialists, not grief counselors. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to say something. But my throat felt like it had closed up. He kept going. Rowan has spent, let me check, over 300 hours compiling this emotional diary. That's 300 hours she could have been negotiating better rates, processing invoices, or doing literally anything productive. My hands were shaking. I tucked them under my thighs. Before we continue, Michael said, his tone shifting into something falsely cheerful. Quick note. While you're watching, drop a comment and let us know what country you're tuning in from. He paused like he was waiting for applause. No one moved. Then he turned back to the screen. Hovered his mouse over the file icon in the corner. We don't need this clutter, he said. And he deleted it. Right there. In front of everyone. The file blinked once, then disappeared into the trash bin. Michael emptied it immediately like he was swatting a fly. There, he said. Now we can focus on real work. The room was silent. Dead silent. Not a single person said a word. I sat there, frozen, my chest tight and my vision going blurry at the edges. I wasn't sad. I was furious. My jaw ached from clenching so hard. Then my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. Almost let it ring out of pure spite. But something made me pull it from my pocket. Unknown number. I swiped to answer, barely able to get the words out. Rowan Pierce speaking. Ms. Pierce, this is Natalie Brennan from Crescent West Supply Group. Do you have a moment? Her voice was calm. Professional. Like she already knew I'd pick up. I glanced at Michael. He was still talking, droning on about efficiency metrics and streamlined processes. I stood up. Yeah, I said quietly. I have a moment. And I walked out. I stepped into the hallway and pressed my back against the wall. My pulse was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Miss Pierce. Natalie's voice came through, steady and clear. Are you still there? I'm here, I said, trying to keep my voice level. What's this about? We've been tracking your work at High Point Procurement for the past year. Specifically, your supplier retention strategies. My stomach did a weird flip. How do you know about that? 3 of your suppliers mentioned you by name when we approached them for partnerships. They said you were the only reason they stayed with High Point as long as they did. I didn't know what to say. My brain was still trying to catch up. Natalie continued. What just happened in that meeting? I'm assuming that's why you stepped out? How do you? We have contacts everywhere, Ms. Pierce. Let's just say we keep our ears open. She paused. I'd like to schedule a call with you later today. Would 4 p.m. work? I looked back through the glass door. Michael was still talking. No one was looking at me. No one had even noticed I'd left. Yeah, I said. 4 works. Perfect. I'll send over a calendar invite. And Ms. Pierce. Yeah. Don't let anyone convince you that what you do doesn't matter. It does. More than you know. She hung up before I could respond. I stood there for a long moment staring at my phone. Then I shoved it back into my pocket and walked toward the elevator. I didn't go back to the conference room. The whole thing started about 16 months earlier. I'd joined High Point Procurement as a junior buyer. Entry-level position. Nothing glamorous. My job was to manage purchase orders, track shipments, and make sure suppliers got paid on time. It was boring. Soul-crushingly boring. Michael was my direct supervisor even back then. He ran the department like a military operation. Everything had to be by the book. No improvisation. No creativity. Just follow the manual, process the paperwork, and keep your head down. I learned fast that Michael didn't tolerate deviation. One time a supplier called in with a billing issue. I tried to help him troubleshoot it over the phone instead of making him submit a formal ticket. Michael overheard and pulled me aside. Stick to the process, he said. We don't have time for hand-holding. So I stuck to the process. For about 2 weeks. Then I started noticing patterns. Suppliers would call in with the same problems over and over. Late payments. Missing confirmations. Incorrect shipping addresses. And every time the issue would get logged in the system, passed around between departments and eventually, forgotten. No follow-up. No resolution. Just endless loops of bureaucracy. One supplier, a guy named Paul who ran a small packaging company in Ohio, called in 6 times about the same invoice discrepancy. 6 times. Each time he got transferred to someone new. Each time he had to explain the whole thing from scratch. The 6th time he got me. Look, he said, his voice tired and frustrated. I don't have time to keep calling. If this doesn't get fixed, I'm done. I'll find another client. I pulled up his file. Saw the notes from all the previous calls. Saw that no one had actually done anything to fix it. So I fixed it. Took me 20 minutes. I called accounting, walked them through the issue, and got the payment processed that afternoon. Paul called back the next day. You actually did it, he said, sounding shocked. I can't believe you actually did it. It's my job, I said. Yeah, well, you're the first person there who seems to think so. After that, I started paying closer attention. Not just to the problems but to the people. I opened a new spreadsheet. Didn't tell anyone. Just started logging things the system didn't care about. Notes about suppliers. Personal details they'd mention in passing. Small things that made them easier to work with. One logistics manager mentioned his daughter was starting college. I made a note. Next time I called, I asked how she was settling in. He was so surprised that someone remembered he upgraded his contract without me even asking. Another supplier mentioned she was moving warehouses and was stressed about the transition. I checked in with her every few days, made sure her shipments didn't get delayed. She sent me a thank you card. An actual handwritten card. It wasn't manipulation. It was just paying attention. People liked being remembered. They liked feeling like they weren't just an account number. And slowly it started to work. Suppliers who'd been on the verge of leaving stuck around. Contracts got renewed without pushback. Issues got resolved faster because people actually wanted to work with me. Michael noticed. Of course he noticed. You're spending too much time on relationship management, he said one morning, standing over my desk. Focus on processing orders. I nodded. Didn't stop. What really pissed him off was that I wasn't doing anything flashy. I wasn't negotiating big discounts or landing huge new accounts. I was just making sure people didn't leave. And in procurement, retention is everything. The more I logged, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about being nice. It was strategy. I started tracking patterns. Which suppliers responded better to email versus phone calls? Who needed extra lead time on orders? Who got anxious about last-minute changes? One supplier, a woman named Diane who ran a textile operation in North Carolina, had a habit of panicking whenever orders shifted by more than 10%. I started giving her advance notice. Just a quick heads-up email a week before any changes went live. She never panicked again. And when her contract came up for renewal, she signed without negotiation. Michael called me into his office after that one. "How did you get Diane to renew?" he asked, leaning back in his chair. "She's been pushing back on rates for 2 years. "I just stayed in touch with her," I said. "Made sure she knew what was coming." He narrowed his eyes. "Don't go rogue on me, Rowan. Stick to the system." "I am sticking to the system," I said. "I'm just making it work better." He didn't like that answer. But he couldn't argue with the results. By month 6, I had the highest supplier retention rate in the department. By month 9, I had the highest in the company. People started requesting me by name. Suppliers would call the main line and ask to be transferred to Rowan. Not because I gave them special deals or bent the rules. Just because I actually listened. Michael hated it. "This isn't a popularity contest," he snapped one afternoon. "You're not their friend." "I'm not trying to be their friend," I said. "I'm trying to keep them from leaving." "Then do it without all the emotional labor." I didn't respond. Just kept logging notes and getting results. The thing is, I wasn't trying to undermine Michael. I wasn't trying to show him up. I was just doing my job the way I thought it should be done. But Michael didn't see it that way. He saw it as a threat. And that's when things started to get ugly. The annual procurement summit was held in a stuffy hotel ballroom downtown. Free coffee that tasted like burnt rubber and catered sandwiches that no one touched. I sat near the back with the rest of the buyers, scrolling through emails on my phone and trying not to fall asleep. Our CEO Leonard Castellano took the stage. Gray suit, red tie, the kind of forced smile that said he'd rather be anywhere else. He went through the usual slides. Budget updates. Operational efficiency. Supply chain improvements. Then he clicked to a new slide. A graph. Sharp upward trend. Bright blue line cutting across the screen. "Supplier retention has increased by 41% over the past year," Leonard said. "That's the highest we've seen in over a decade." A few people clapped. Polite, scattered applause. "We've also seen significant improvements in contract renewals and supplier satisfaction scores," he continued. "Something we're doing is working." My heart started beating faster. He didn't say my name. He didn't have to. Half the room turned to look at me. I kept my face neutral, but inside I was screaming. Finally someone noticed. Leonard moved on to the next slide, but I could feel the energy shift. People were whispering. A few of my coworkers gave me subtle nods. Michael didn't look at me. He sat 3 rows ahead, arms crossed, staring straight ahead. After the presentation ended, I made my way to the break room. I'd barely poured my coffee when Michael walked in. "We need to talk," he said. I turned to face him. "About what?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "About you making the rest of us look bad." "I'm not trying to make anyone look bad." "You think I don't know what you're doing?" His jaw was tight. "All this extra attention you're giving suppliers. It's not sustainable. It's not scalable. And it's making my management style look ineffective." "Maybe it is ineffective," I said before I could stop myself. His eyes went cold. "Watch yourself, Rowan." He pulled a printed memo from his folder and slapped it on the counter. "I want a full report," he said. "Every supplier interaction you've had over the past year. Every call, every email, every note. Documented and formatted for executive review." I stared at the paper. "That's going to take weeks." "Then you'd better get started." He walked out, leaving the memo sitting there like a threat. I picked it up and read through it. It was a performance evaluation request. But it was really a punishment. He wanted me to justify every single thing I'd done. Every minute I'd spent building relationships instead of processing orders. Fine. I'd give him exactly what he asked for. Took me 4 weeks. I stayed late every night. Ate vending machine dinners and drank gas station coffee until my hands shook. I pulled every call log, every email thread, every note I'd ever made. I built timelines. Cross-referenced supplier contract renewals with my contact frequency. Tracked revenue increases against follow-up emails. I didn't just document what I'd done. I proved it worked. 72 pages. Charts, graphs, data tables. Every single interaction mapped to a measurable outcome. When I finished, I didn't feel tired. I felt dangerous. I printed the whole thing, bound it, and dropped it on Michael's desk at 8 a.m. on a Monday. He looked at it like I'd just handed him a dead rat. "This is what you wanted," I said. He flipped through the first few pages, his expression unreadable. "I'll review it," he said flatly. "You do that." I walked out, leaving him sitting there with 72 pages of proof that I was right and he was wrong. I didn't hear anything for 3 days. Then came the email. Subject: Mandatory training, supplier communication standards. Michael had booked the main conference room. Everyone in procurement was required to attend. I knew what it was before I even opened the calendar invite. This wasn't training. This was a public execution. I showed up anyway. The conference room was packed. Every chair filled. People lined up against the walls. Michael stood at the front, one hand on the projector remote, the other in his pocket. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice dripping with fake professionalism. "Today we're going to discuss best practices for supplier communication." He clicked the remote. My stomach dropped. There on the screen was my report. The title page. The one I'd spent a month building. Supplier Relationship Audit, Rowan Pierce. Every person in the room turned to look at me. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Just sat there, gripping the armrest so hard my knuckles turned white. Michael clicked to the next slide. "Let's look at some examples of what not to do," he said. The slide showed one of my notes. A comment about a supplier whose father had passed away. I'd flagged it to give him extra time on a shipment confirmation. Michael read it aloud, his tone mocking. "Supplier experiencing family loss. Be considerate on deadlines." He looked around the room. "Are we running a hospice now?" No one laughed. He clicked again. Another note. This one about a logistics coordinator who'd mentioned his son's baseball tournament. I'd made sure not to schedule calls during game times. "Personal scheduling preferences," Michael said, shaking his head. "This is procurement, not a concierge service." So no one laughed. But he kept going. Slide after slide. Every note I'd made, every small gesture of humanity twisted into a joke. I sat there burning. He got to the final slide. The one with the revenue graph. The one showing a direct correlation between my contact frequency and contract renewals. He didn't say a word about it. Just hovered his mouse over the file icon. "This takes up too much space on the server," he said. "We're cleaning house." He deleted it. One click. Gone. The room was silent. Michael turned back to us, hands on his hips. "Moving forward, we'll be focusing on efficiency. No more unnecessary relationship management. Stick to the metrics that matter." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, hands shaking. Another unknown number. I stood up without asking permission and walked toward the door. "Rowan," Michael called after me. "We're not done here." I kept walking. I answered the call in the hallway, my voice barely steady. "Rowan Pierce." "Miss Pierce, it's Natalie Brennan. I'm calling with an offer. Do you have time to talk?" "I have time," I said. "Director of Supplier Strategy. Base salary $600,000. Equity options. Full team autonomy. We want you to build the program your way." I didn't hesitate. "I accept." "Excellent. I'll send the contract within the hour." I hung up and stood there for a moment, staring at the conference room through the glass door. Michael was still talking. Still pretending he'd won. I pushed the door open and walked back in. He stopped mid-sentence. "Rowan, if you're done with your personal call." "I'm resigning," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. The room went silent. Michael laughed. "You can't just." I pulled out my phone and held up the screen. Signed contract. Crescent West Supply Group. Director level. "I'm done." He reached for my phone like he had some kind of authority over it. I pulled it back. "You need to give 2 weeks' notice," he said, his voice tight. "No," I said. "I really don't." I turned to the room. "If anyone here wants to work somewhere that actually values what you do, you know how to find me." I didn't wait for applause. Didn't wait for anything. I walked out calm as hell and didn't look back. Crescent West's office was in a sleek high-rise downtown. Glass walls, open floor plan, the kind of place where people actually seemed happy to be at work. Natalie met me in the lobby with a smile that felt genuine. "Welcome," she said, shaking my hand. "Ready to build something great?" My office wasn't huge, but it had my name on the door. Real nameplate, real title. Rowan Pierce, Director of Supplier Strategy. I dropped my bag on the desk and opened my laptop. Within 2 hours I had my first call. It was Paul, the packaging supplier from Ohio. The one who'd almost left High Point because of their terrible invoice system. Rowan, he said, his voice warm. Heard you made a move. Just wanted to see if you landed somewhere good. I did, I said. Want to come with me? By the end of the call he was drafting a transition plan. Then came Diane, the textile supplier who used to panic over schedule changes. I don't care what the rates are, she said. If you're there, I'm there. By the end of my first week I had 5 suppliers ready to switch. No cold calls. No sales pitches. Just people who remembered what it felt like to be treated like they mattered. Meanwhile, back at High Point things were falling apart. One of my old coworkers texted me. Michael's freaking out. 3 suppliers canceled their contracts this week. Another one, he's trying to call everyone personally. It's not going well. I didn't gloat. Didn't need to. The numbers spoke for themselves. By week 3, Natalie walked into my office with a grin. We just closed 2 major accounts, she said. Both of them specifically asked for you. Which ones? Diane and Paul. I smiled. They're good people. They're loyal people, Natalie said. Because you were loyal to them first. She dropped a folder on my desk. Keep going. I opened it. Inside was a list of suppliers who'd reached out to Crescent West in the past month. Almost all of them had worked with me at High Point. I started making calls. One by one they came over. Not because I offered them better rates. Not because I promised them special treatment. Just because they trusted me. By the end of my second month, Crescent West supplier network had grown by 22%. Michael meanwhile was drowning. Someone forwarded me an email he'd sent to former suppliers. The subject line, "We miss working with you." It was templated. Generic. The kind of email that gets deleted without being read. One of the suppliers responded with a screenshot of the email and sent it to me with a note. Too little, too late. Michael tried calling. Left voicemails. Sent follow-up emails. None of it worked. Because people don't forget how you made them feel. And Michael had made them feel invisible. 3 months and I got another call from High Point. This time it was Leonard Castellano. Phew. Rowan, he said, his voice carefully neutral. I'd like to discuss a potential opportunity. I'm listening, I said, leaning back in my chair. We'd like to offer you a position. Senior Vice President of Supplier Relations. Full control over the department. Your own team. Significant raise. How significant? Triple your previous salary. Plus bonuses and stock options. I let the silence stretch. Rowan. I appreciate the offer, Leonard. But I'm happy where I am. We're willing to be flexible. I'm sure you are. But flexibility doesn't fix a broken culture. He didn't have a response to that. Good luck with the rebuild, I said and hung up. 2 weeks later, High Point announced layoffs. 15 people from procurement. Michael's entire team gutted. Michael himself lasted another month before they let him go. I found out through LinkedIn. His profile updated to seeking new opportunities, with a generic bio that didn't mention High Point at all. No one commented. No one reached out. He'd burned every bridge he had. 6 months after I left, Crescent West promoted me to VP. My team had grown to 12 people. We'd onboard 40 new suppliers. Revenue from supplier contracts was up 47%. I didn't have to micromanage. Didn't have to enforce rigid processes. I just hired people who cared. People who understood that relationships weren't a waste of time. They were the whole point. One afternoon, Natalie called me into her office. We're expanding into the Midwest, she said. I want you to lead the division. Full control. Full control. I signed the papers that same day. Now when I walk through the office, I don't see people hunched over their desks afraid to speak. I see collaboration. I see people who actually like what they do. Every desk has personal touches. Photos of kids. Notes from suppliers. One guy has a drawing from a client's daughter taped to his monitor. We remember names. We remember birthdays. We remember what matters. And it works. Every single time someone says, "You probably don't remember this, but..." I do. Always do. Michael thought it was weakness. He thought caring was inefficient. He was wrong. The best revenge isn't burning someone's career to the ground. It's building something so good that they can't ignore it. And that's exactly what I did. A year after I left High Point, I was sitting in my office when my assistant knocked. "Someone here to see you," she said. "Didn't have an appointment but says it's important." "Who is it?" She hesitated. "Michael Barrett." I stared at her. "You're kidding." "He's in the lobby." I almost said no. Almost told her to send him away. But curiosity got the better of me. "Give me 5 minutes," I said. "Then send him in." I straightened my desk, made myself a coffee, sat down and waited. When Michael walked in, he looked different, smaller somehow. His suit was wrinkled. His tie was crooked. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Rowan," he said. "Thanks for seeing me." I didn't stand. Didn't offer him a chair. "What do you want, Michael?" He shifted his weight, hands in his pockets. I wanted to apologize. I raised an eyebrow. "For what, specifically?" "For the way I treated you. For deleting your report. For everything." I didn't say anything. Just waited. "I was wrong," he continued, his voice tight. "About the relationship management. About the way you worked. You were right. I just couldn't see it. And now you can?" He nodded. "I've been out of work for 4 months. No one will hire me. Every interview I go to, they ask about my management style. And when they call High Point for references." He trailed off. "They don't have good things to say," I finished. "No, they don't." I took a sip of my coffee, letting the silence hang between us. "I'm not here to ask for a job," he said quickly. "I know that's not. I know you wouldn't." "Then why are you here?" "I wanted you to know that I get it now. What you were doing. It wasn't about being soft. It was about being smart." I set my coffee down. "Michael, I don't need your apology. I don't need your validation. I've moved on." "I know," he said quietly. "I just needed to say it." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth," he said, "you're going to do great things here." "I already am," I said. He nodded once, then left. I sat there for a long time after he was gone, staring at the door. I didn't feel vindicated. Didn't feel smug. I just felt done. The past was the past. And I had a future to build. 2 years after leaving High Point, Crescent West opened 3 new regional offices. I oversaw all of them. We became the fastest growing supply chain firm in the industry. Articles were written about our retention rates. Case studies were published about our supplier relationships. I was invited to speak at conferences, industry panels, strategy workshops. Every time I told the same story. "It's not about the numbers," I'd say. "It's about the people behind the numbers." People would nod, take notes, ask questions. But most of them didn't get it. Not really. Because understanding it and living it are 2 different things. I still kept my notes. Still logged birthdays and personal details and little things that mattered. One supplier sent me a card when his daughter graduated from college. "You remembered when she started," he wrote. "Thank you for caring." Another sent a photo of his new warehouse. "Couldn't have done this without your support," he said. These weren't just business relationships. They were real. And that's what made them last. Michael never recovered. Last I heard, he was working as a consultant for small firms. Freelance gigs. Nothing permanent. His LinkedIn profile was a ghost town. No endorsements. No recommendations. Just a list of skills that no one believed he had. I didn't take pleasure in it. But I didn't feel bad for him either. He made his choices. I made mine. And in the end, mine were better. 3 years in, Natalie called me into her office one last time. "We're restructuring," she said. "Creating a new C-suite position." I waited. Chief Relationship Officer. Full executive authority. Board seat. Equity stake. I blinked. "You're serious?" "Completely. You've built something incredible here, Rowan. We want to make it official." I signed the contract that afternoon. Now when I walk into board meetings, I'm not the youngest person in the room anymore. I'm not the least experienced. I'm the person everyone listens to. Because I proved that caring isn't a weakness. It's a strategy. And it's the best strategy there is. People don't stay because you have the best prices. They stay because you make them feel seen. They stay because you remember. They stay because you give a damn. Michael called it emotional labor. called it inefficient. He was wrong. It wasn't labor. It was investment. And it paid off in ways he never could have imagined. Now, when people ask me how I built my career, I don't talk about metrics or strategies or business models. I talk about Paul, the packaging supplier who almost gave up because no one would fix his invoice. I talk about Diane, the textile manager who just needed someone to give her a heads up before things changed. I talk about the dozens of other people who felt invisible until someone bothered to see them. That's what I built my career on. Not numbers. People. And the funny thing is, once you focus on the people, the numbers take care of themselves. Michael never understood that. He thought efficiency meant cutting out anything that didn't directly generate profit. But what he didn't realize is that relationships are profit. They're just long-term profit. The kind that compounds over years instead of quarters. The kind that lasts. I didn't destroy Michael's career. He did that himself. I just built something better. And in the end, that's the only revenge that matters. 5 years after I walked out of that conference room, I was sitting in my corner office at Crescent West, looking out over the city when my assistant buzzed in. "Rowan, there's someone online too. Says they used to work with you at High Point." I picked up. "This is Rowan." "Hey Rowan. It's Paul." I smiled. "Paul. How are you?" "Good. Really good. I'm calling because my son just graduated from business school. He's looking for internships. I was wondering if Crescent West had any openings." "Send me his resume," I said. "I'll take a look." "You're the best, Rowan. Seriously. I wouldn't trust him with anyone else." After I hung up, I sat there for a moment thinking about that. I wouldn't trust him with anyone else. That's what it all came down to. Trust. You can't buy it. You can't fake it. You can only earn it. One conversation at a time. One gesture at a time. One moment of actually giving a damn at a time. Michael thought he could run a department without it. Thought he could build efficiency by cutting out the human element. But efficiency without humanity is just a race to the bottom. And I wasn't interested in the bottom. I was interested in the top. So I built something that lasted. Something real. And I did it by doing the one thing Michael said was a waste of time. I cared. And that made all the difference.